to welcome you all to this semester's first intellectual salon. I'm Joe Medeiros, and I'm a retired biology instructor, and I'm the editor of the Sierra College Press. And you'll see here that the library, the Friends of the Library, Sierra College Press, and associated students have gathered together to kind of put these intellectual salons together. There's a few chairs still up here. And make sure that you get yourself some coffee and enjoy the venue. This is the first time we've ever tried it in this corner of the world, so we know that we are having to share your space, and I'm sure that you love having this coffee shop here too, so thanks for sharing your sound space with us. The intellectual salon started, actually this is the tail end of our fourth year. Here we do both semesters we do 4 salons each semester, and so we call them intellectual salons. And what is that? It's really when you pick up a topic and you discuss. It's discourse. So everyone's point of view is equally valuable and equally weighed. We try to instill some thoughts and some topics, and then we take off from there. Over the years, in 2015, when we started the intellectual salon, each semester we did something on a different topic. The first topic was time, and we had a great deal of fun with that. The second year was love, and we started in the spring semester and did the fall semester as well. Last year, both semesters, we focused on fear. And as you can imagine, you can take any one of these 4-letter words and really go a long way with it. This year, this is the second semester of the Home Salon series, and so next spring we will start off with series number 5. And what's that going to be? Help me out. If you want to leave, a 4-letter word with me, something that we can use in public and so on, please do so, because we're looking for another topic for next year. So it's really pleasant to be here in this venue, and thank you to the people at Drip that allow us to be in here and share your space with you. So last semester we did a number of topics on home. This semester we're starting off with one that I think should be very interesting and a lot of fun. And we're going to talk about humor. And if you think about humor, it seems like it's something that's outside of the concept of home, right? But thanks to people telling me about this professor here, who has studied humor in great detail and how it relates to perhaps a safety net, perhaps a refuge, perhaps being able to find yourself in a safer place if you are humorous. If you think about it, who was the class clown in high school, and why were they the class clown? And things of that nature. We'll learn a lot more about that today. So next month, at the beginning of the month, we will do returning home on one of the 3 days of Dia de los Muertos. Coming home, the deceased coming home to visit the family and so on. So that should be a very, very special one. Maybe you've heard about Ai Weiwei's film called Human Flow, and it's about the global refugee crisis in the world, and we'll be doing that at the end of the month. We'll actually be doing that for 3 days in this space, and that's going to be a very, very powerful issue all by itself. So there they are. This year we're actually going to do 3, but this last one is going to be 3 different presentations. And so I'll start this with the worst joke in the world. A horse walks into a bar, the bartender says, "Why the long face?" Yeah, right. See? I just took that leap. Do I really want to tell a joke? Am I going to embarrass myself? When is a joke a bad joke? And so on. So it's a pleasure for me to welcome Dr. Franks here with us today. And I've called her Kara so many times because I have a daughter that's Kara, and we have a Kara Franks that works here and so on. But Dr. Franks is an alumnus from Sierra College, and in 2015 she graduated from Arizona State University with a PhD in humor and
Organizational
organizational
communication.
Is there such a thing?
There is.
Okay, all right. So it's a great, great pleasure for me to introduce probably one of your favorite professors here on the campus. So we're going to switch out here.
That was a shout out to that sweet selfie up there.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oops, we've got two of you loaded here, so.
That's okay.
Always better. Two is better than one.
So I gotta say, Joe was my teacher. That's funny. Okay.
Smaller.
I know. I was smaller. Yeah, that's true. That's a real thing. Anyway.
Tiny, shorter as well.
Yeah. I'm so pumped to be here right now because, as an instructor, we sometimes get opportunities to talk about the things that we're passionate in class, but we don't always get opportunities to elaborate on them or engage with them in the ways that are super meaningful. And I just have to say, when Joe told me that this was going to be in a coffee shop, I'm going to date myself, but for those of you who can appreciate, I was like, all right, ready? Coffee talk. It's neither peanut butter, right? It's neither peanut nor butter. No, okay, if you don't know, it's fine. It's Mike Myers skit from Saturday Night Live. But it made me think about the fact that we were going to do a coffee talk, and I was really excited about it. So to get us going, talking about humor, which, by the way, this is kind of interesting, too. Joe said, you're going to talk about humor, but I want you to do it in the context of home. And I thought, what the hell am I going to do? Like, that's going to be a crazy a theme, right, to try to bring in. And as I was brainstorming ideas for what is it that I really want to say and I want people to take away, I thought about how many ways that humor really, really does tie to all of our different types of conceptions about home. And so I hope to be able to cover some of those today. The first thing I want to do, though, is just give a disclaimer. If you've taken a class with me, you probably know, but here in a public space, something today is going to piss you off. I'm already sorry, and I mean that as sweetly and gently as I possibly can. And as we're going to come to find out, it's because humor in and of itself is cultural, it's personal. Sometimes we find offense with certain things, or certain things sink in and touch home a little closer than others. So I would like to ask you today that as you're listening, if something is presented that really challenges your identity, your worldview, some of your values, then instead of taking it as a moment of like, ugh, I really hope that she wouldn't have talked about that thing, or that clip is actually not funny at all to me, that instead you would stop and pause in that moment and say, isn't it interesting that, right? This is a moment to self-reflect and take a step and say, isn't it interesting that I'm challenged by this, or that this is touching me in a unique way, or I wonder how this same message might land upon, and then fill in other communities and demographics that you might be a member of. So that's my little disclaimer. And then silly time. I need 10 of y'all. 10 people. Yes. Oh, Paulette. I was like, girl, that's happening. Will, yeah, come on up. Will, too? Yeah. Oh, you're coming up. Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I'm calling on my students. This is very biased. I'm not, right? People who are meant to be here, please come on up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do have James. Coming up, 7. I need a couple more. 8, 9, 10. Shane, good. I see your hand up. That's going to happen. Right? It's the whole voluntold.
Your student, can I be up here?
Yes! All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here you go, Will. Go ahead and put your hand right there. 5, 6, 7, 8. Any others? 9. Perfect. And my friend from camp, 10. Beautiful. I love it. Right? Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate how an inside joke works, because we're going to make one. So this challenge, should you choose to accept, is imagine that whatever is written on your card, that you have to laugh as that thing, that object, might laugh. And then we as the audience are going to guess. All right? So how might the thing on your card laugh? Let's start with Duhat.
Could you come back to me?
Yeah, right. That's always the response I get. Sure, I'll come back. James, you want to give it a try?
Why not? Ha 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 ha.
Good job, right? Awesome. Okay, we'll go down the line and then we'll come back and have them reveal their cards. All right, Adam.
I got nothing.
Give it a try. I know you can.
Can you go back to me too?
Ash. All right, Will.
Ching, ching, cha, 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 ching, cha, cha.
Okay. That was a hiccup. That was a hiccup. Catch that. That was a hiccup.
All right, Brandon. Perfect. Like the nonverbals with that one, right? Yeah, Shane.
Gobble, 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 gobble.
Very literal. Yeah. All right, Anne.
Pop, 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 pop.
Perfect. Okay, Duha, you ready? Nice.
I'm done.
Okay. All right, Adam.
A lot of thought.
I know, there's a lot. This isn't like critical thinking.
I agree.
Someone else wants to do it for you, right? No, you can do it. Do it. Give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Like,
Oh, what?
Let's turn it to the audience. Everyone, go ahead and turn your card around. So we have a Prius, a calculator. How would your textbook laugh if your textbook could laugh?
oh yeah.
I heard some cha-chings. I heard some laugh, laugh, laugh. We got a dragon, a credit card, a mermaid, a unicorn, a semi-truck, a turkey, and popcorn. Awesome. Can we go ahead and give a round of applause? Cool. Ezra, you can go ahead and sit down.
I'm really glad with the one that I got.
There you go. Okay, so what was the purpose of that silly demonstration, right? Number one, now, quite frankly, we all have an inside joke. So next time you see one of these people on campus, you can go up and be like, and we're all going to know exactly what you're referring to, which was that awkward moment that I made you laugh like a semi-truck, right? Type of deal. But it also kind of creates a framework of play, right? How often do we make ourselves vulnerable? Do we really go there? Do we push the limits? And what's unique about humor is that's exactly where it sort of operates best, is in that play frame and right on those limits, right on those borders and boundaries of, am I really going to do this, take this leap? Is this too serious? Is this right? Is this safe? And it plays and teeters right on that space. So again, just sort of a framework for us to sort of work from for today. So next what I want to do is give you some definitions that we can all sort of work from as just a space, sort of a platform to begin. Then I want to talk to you about some cool bio stuff. So when we're laughing, when we're generating humor, when we're thinking about humor, when we're appreciating humor, when we're angry at a joke, what is actually going on biologically? Because there's some pretty cool stuff that goes down inside the body as well. Then what happens when we do use it as a space to retreat? Quick show of hands, how many of you could say, at some point in my life, I think I've turned to humor as a space for self-defense? Right? That's a safe space, a comforting space. When I've had to use this as an effort to defend myself because I was perceiving some sort of threat or an attack in an important way. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then lastly, what happens when things go wrong? Right? So your friend at work asks you, did you see that Saturday Night Live clip of Matt Damon doing his impression of Kavanaugh? And you're like, no. right? Oh, and by the way, we're probably going to end up watching something like that. And again, those moments where you're like, this didn't translate well, or this is a no-no space, or this has got to be breaching some sort of equity boundary or commitment or legal line that I've, signed my name to at this point. And some of those examples. And so I've sort of developed this little table of safe jokes versus not so safe jokes, so to speak. So we already did this. Notice what happened, though, when we did the icebreaker. Right? So how many of you, if I were to yawn right now, or just thinking about a yawn, or saying the word yawn? I can't even, right? Yeah, it's contagious. What's the deal with that? Well, just like yawning, so is laughter contagious. And an interesting fact is that the body, the body knows whether or not you're doing a fake smile, right? So everyone show me, there's your real smile, and then there's like I'm smiling for another picture mom smile, right? What's your fake smile? Mine always looks like pervy or something. I'm like, right? So fake smile. Your body knows what a fake smile is. But your hormones and your physical organs don't distinguish between a fake laugh and a real laugh. So the same types of endorphins circulate in the body whether you're laughing for real or you're laughing for fake. And much like a yawn, so is laughter contagious. Have you even heard of laughing yoga before? It functions really similar to, do you remember when we were kids and they made us lay down like on each other's stomach? And one person would, if you're like, no, what elementary school did you go to? I did not. It's not a practice of mine growing up. But they would do this weird thing where they would start by laying down one kid, and then another kid would lay their head on their stomach, and they would go, ha! And then if you felt yours, then you would automatically respond with a ha, and pretty soon it was this echoing, wave-like, creepy ha circle among heads and bellies, right, that was sort of taking place in the cafeteria. And the reason why they've demonstrated the reason why they've done some of these things is to, again, demonstrate that contagion factor, right? Have you ever laughed so hard that you were like in tears? Like your stomach physically hurt and you felt like you might throw up, right? That is a full body, all organ experience. And I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead to the bio stuff, but again, isn't it interesting the way that just hearing and perceiving different types of humor, we can sort of engage in some of those things. So let's take a look then at some of our definitions that we're going to take a look at, or that we're going to dive into today. If I were to ask you right now, define humor. Julie, define humor.
I don't know.
Right, rude. She's in my department. So.
An event that you find tickles you. Yeah, kind of perk up and laugh.
Yeah, and not to pick on Julie because I love her so much, but I find myself using the word humor to define humor. Right? I'm like, humor is something that's funny, but it's not just when it's funny. It's also when something is not funny, but because it's not funny, it's funny. And then, you know what I mean? And so you kind of go back and forth, and it's really a hard thing to explain. But how mundane and usual and commonplace is it in our everyday life? Right? Do you have a sibling, maybe a best friend, maybe even someone that you just sit next to in class that, like, some of the core foundations of your relationship is the fact that you can laugh together or have the shared sense of humor, right? So humor is wildly misinterpreted as the ability to be funny, but I instead want us to think about it as not a humorist, right? The ability to be funny, but as sort of an orientation or an attitude about life itself, right? Maybe you've heard the phrase, be in good humor, or to show good humor, right? And that's the idea that humor is more or less a view, right? A worldview. It's a half full, it's a choice about how you're going to interpret challenges, struggles, and realities in your life. And so humor then ends up being more about an approach or an outlook rather than it is a skill set. And I like interpreting it that way because people often say, okay, well, at the end of your humor talk, are you going to teach us how to be funny? No, if you're not funny, you already know you're not funny. That's just how that goes. Like, you can try, but that's up to you. You know what I mean? Like, kind of deal, right? There's not like a secret formula for being funny, but it is, in fact, not only the cognitive ability to make some interesting relationships and connections occur in the brain, but also simply that appreciation as well. So what is a sense of humor? Well, a sense of humor is one's ability to perceive something as funny or not funny. And we all know people with different humor thresholds. What's a threshold? Right? A threshold is that limit for which a stimulus must cause a particular reaction. So I want to show you an example, if I can. Do we have sound on here, by the way? You forgot about that. And that's okay. Even if we don't, we can make it work. I just taught a class about what happens when everything fails, so that's great.
Tell me what to sound like and I'll do it for you. So.
Right. Let's see if it'll show up on...
There'll be someone that...
We'll see. Even if it doesn't show up, I'll give you some context because the visual here is just as compelling. So here we have the 70th annual Golden Globes. And I don't know about you, but I happen to think that Kristen Wiig and Will Ferrell are two of the most hilarious human beings on the face of the earth. And you might disagree, to which I would then not be your friend. But, right? But here you have, they're presenting at these Golden Globes, and they're making just joke after joke about the nominees and the films. Hopefully we'll have some audio to show that. Here we go. Here's the real thing. Can we hear a little bit?
It is our distinct honor to be presenting tonight in the category of Best Performance by an Actress in a Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical.
And this year, the Golden Globes has asked if each presenter would watch all of the films in their category to have an appreciation of these amazing performances, which I did. I totally watched them. Did you?
Yes. Yes.
So it's only 5 films. It's only 5 films,
crazy.
so you
just watch
you
them.
sit down, you pop them in, you watch them. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal. Oh my gosh.
And wow, these performances.
Oh my gosh.
These performances, the Emily Blunt. Salmon fishing in the Yemen.
Emily Blunt, always beautiful, always amazing.
And when the salmon are coming out,
when the bad guy comes,
and the salmon's like, and you know, when you're in Yemen. And Judi Dench, where did she come from? Unknown.
Amazing.
She used to be a police officer, and her first movie, Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and she comes into town.
And she's on that tractor
and the marigolds everywhere.
Her hair.
And
she comes in that one scene, you know that
she
scene
looks at the town people and she's like, she says, you get out of here.
Get out.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh my gosh. Love Jennifer Lawrence.
J-Law. Love her. Silver Linings.
Playbook. Oh my gosh.
And the silver. I thought it was an animated film.
The silver that she's collected.
She's
and
over time.
And they try to take it
and she says, no, that's my cookbook.
Yes.
And
she comes in and she says,
like, you get out of here. Get out! She means it. Maggie Smith in the Quartet. And no one knows what the Quartet is. And it's ambiguous.
And you're like, you think you know what it is, and then that guy comes.
And he's like, I think I know what the Quartet is. But he doesn't. what does that say?
Here.
I don't.
Mariel.
Mariel Street. Mariel Street. Hope Springs, and
oh my gosh.
she's the sassy sheriff.
That sassy sheriff.
Hope Springs, and
Southern, that accent, and that old, and that town.
The town.
She comes in on the horse, and that scene,
and the scene where she looks at the town people. You get out of here, you are. You get out of here. Once again, here are the nominees.
Right? So that's kind of, again, that example of like that humor threshold that we're talking about. And, clearly just not funny for some people. And we could certainly ask them why and, go into different things. But I think it kind of gets at some of the debate that we'll come back to in just a minute about, is humor, let's take it to that space of nature and nurture, right? Are some people just born funny and therefore born with different humor thresholds and orientations, or are we socialized? And if we're socialized in a way to be funny, interpret humor, love or dislike certain types, how much of that truly does begin in the home? So I want you to think about what your home was like growing up, no matter what type of construction that might be under, right? And I don't just mean an apartment or a condo or those types of things, but who were your caretakers, the major influencers in your life, the big socializing agents that taught you or showed you in one way or another how to view the world through that humor lens and really shaped your humor and orientation, right? I've had students say, well, my dad was really funny, but everything that he did was really sarcastic. My experience of that student is typically that they are also sarcastic, right? And it's because we've been demonstrated or shown this style of humor for so long. So before we jump into those styles and really bring out that nature-nurture debate, I wanted to share with you the super nerdy side of it, right? And this is where my colleagues used to always ask me, doesn't studying humor take the funny out of it? Sometimes, but only when I'm wearing my academic hat, because I'll tell you what, I go home and I take it off and everything that I teach in my communication class absolutely flies out the door in the window. I suck at the very thing that I teach and I just grab a karaoke mic and I go to town, right? That's a typical Thursday at the old Frank's house. Okay, does it take the funny out? Sometimes, but it also informs us, right, about knowing something about ourselves. And one of the things that I say to my students is I love those moments where we get to see ourselves or where we show ourselves to ourselves in interesting ways. And so sometimes by understanding the rationale or the theory behind something, we can use it as one of those powerful moments. So there's 3 theories of humor. The first is the superiority theory. And the superiority theory is simply this. There's always a target. It sucks when you're that target. But it's also interesting to see what happens when someone else is the target and you're the bystander, right? Again, taking it back to that space of home, what places do you retreat to when you, in fact, are the victim? And so superiority humor looks like teasing, ridicule, and making fun of, but what if you're the victim or the target of your own joke, right? And a person that I think demonstrates that process very well is Kevin Hart. So I already apologize for some of the language that you may experience or encounter during this clip, but that's just how it is. How do I...
Go to the main slideshow first.
Oh, am I on it?
No.
Oh, like go down here and click on it?
Yeah, right. And then...
There we go. We'll see what happens here.
Oh, I just got the job.
Hello, Michael. I have something you might like to see.
This is not it. This is whatever they make us watch.
Michael escaped. I've been preparing for this for a long time.
No, this one.
For
That sounds horrifying, whatever that is.
waited for him.
Okay, let's not watch the scary thing. How about that? That sounds good. Okay. This happens to be one of my favorites, but here you go. Here's a little bit of Kevin Hart.
In Dallas, Texas, all right? Me, Nate, my boy Harry, Wayne, Spank, my lady was with me. We having a good time. We do a show, we at the after party. We getting it in. Getting money. Getting money. We getting it in, right? I look up, the owner of the club, he got my lady by the arm, her girlfriend by the other arm, he throwing them out the club. I saw it happen, but I acted like I didn't because I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to be involved. So, my boy Wayne was like, yo, he got your girl by the arm. I said, what? Chill, don't nobody do shit. I got it. I run up to him, I said, yo, don't put your hands on my lady, man. I pushed him. He didn't go back that far, but it was a good push for me. It was all I had. When I did it, he was like, security. Security guards came up, grabbed me, put me in a full Nelson. Now, you know how you think you're making somebody strong? Like, you know, you think you're giving them a hard way to go? I thought I was, but I wasn't. I was just moving my face. I was like, nah. So now, in my mind, I'm like, where's Wayne at? That's my security guard. That's why I pay for shit like this not to happen. On cue, Wayne and my boy Spade come run up. They grab the security guards. They're like, get off him. Let him go. Get off him. Now I hear him, okay? I'm still in the full Nelson, but I hear my friends, so I feel better. I'm like, I know I'm safe now. But before they let me go, the owner, he mushes me. He puts his hand on my face. He said, I said, get the fuck out of here, and mush me. I never had nobody put their hand on my face, so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get it off. I panicked, I licked his palm. I was like, I licked the shit out of his palm. I was like, get your hands off my face. He was like, So then they let me go. Now I'm free, but I'm like, yo, I'm not leaving because I don't want him to think I'm a bitch. So I run back up to him, I'm like, yo man, don't put your hands on my face. You don't know me like that. As I'm talking to him, I'm like, oh shit, he's in a fighting stance. Kev, he about to hit you. Protect yourself. Better yet, hit him first. I throw a punch, punched him right in the face. Bam! Never hit nobody in the face before, so I was excited. I celebrated. I was like, yeah, bitch, you don't want it. Real niggas. All day. Deep block. All day. By myself. Gun on my waist. Smile on my face. In jail. One bed. One blanket. You wanna go night-night, nigga? You wanna go night-night, nigga? So now, he tries to tackle me. As I'm in my speech, he tackles me. I'm like, why would you tackle me? I'm small, I got low center of gravity. I get him off me, I start uppercutting him. Whipping his ass. He realized that he's losing, he tries to call his security guard back. He's like, Thomas, come help. I look over, Wayne, my security guard, Wayne got a real big stomach. Wayne had Thomas on the wall. When I looked over, this is exactly what I saw. Wayne was like, what you doing, where you going? No, shut up. No, what you doing? Where you gonna go? What you doing? It didn't look good. I didn't know if he was helping me or helping himself. I never brought it back up. I didn't want to know. So now, reality is kicked in. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in Dallas, Texas. If I get arrested out here, I'm not getting out of jail till like Tuesday. I'm like, yo, let's go. Get the car. Nate, get the car. Let's go. This I knew Nate was OG. Nate got the car, put the car up on the curb, blocked the whole curb off, right? I've never seen Nate this hype in my life. He was hype as shit. He's like, hey, get Kev in the car. Hurry up, man! Hurry up for the cops come! Somebody grab his head, push his head down so they don't see him. When he said that, I was like, oh shit, Nate used to be a killer. How else would he know what to do in a situation like this? I was like, I don't even know who he is anymore. Then he snaps on me. He's like, I can't believe you, Kevin. You got a career. You doing television, you doing movies, you gonna jeopardize that shit for a street fight? That's stupid. Let's go! Hurry up, man! Hurry up for the cops come. We don't have time. Y'all wanna do what y'all wanna do. We gotta get the hell out of here. We don't have this type of time. We never pulled off. We got locked up on the spot. Cleveland, I love y'all. My name is Kev Hart. Thank you.
So, I want to use that clip to talk a little bit about not only superiority theory, but a little bit about threshold. Because I don't know about you, but watching that alone in front of my computer gives me license to laugh in ways that publicly I question whether or not I'm allowed to do, right? And there were certain moments in that clip where the language that was used, I thought, looking the way I do, I'm not allowed to participate here. So I'm going to put that on pause for a minute. Or that certainly made me uncomfortable, the use of that word. So now for the rest, I'm looking around. And I saw a lot of you even looking to people next to you being like, that just happened out loud in the library at Sierra College, right? And I'm not tenured yet, but that's fine. So, but yeah, but what I want to know, and then some of you I noticed were not laughing at all, one little bit. Others of you very much laughing. I even saw somebody go like this, which I guess means like right. We're both laughing at this. So talk to me a little bit about that clip. Were there moments of discomfort? Was it funny? Was it not funny? What do you think? Hilarious.
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart. I mean, and what a performer, right? He really embodies a lot of the humor comes out physically as well. What else? Yeah, Shane.
I definitely thought it was funny, but like you said, just like the language, hearing that in an environment that I wouldn't usually hear, it kind of caught me off guard. But once I realized no one was going to react too badly to it, it was easy to kind of relax and just laugh at it.
Yeah, assess the threat, look around, everyone okay? Oh, right. And there's a lot of that. Yeah, do it.
You sort of reminded me of you.
Great. Don't put that in an eval ever.
Not in a bad way, but when you enjoy yourself when you're telling a story or when you're just like making fun of someone or just being
I don't do that. Yeah, no, but I know what you mean, right?
Yeah, but like you're you and it makes me laugh all the time. And that's what Kevin does for me too. So like sort of compared to your life.
Yeah, even when you see somebody who, like you believe the message, right? You believe it. Because there's something that they've done with the language that feels true or authentic to the actual speaker. What else?
There's a lot of self-effacement. He was rather than using superiority against others, he was laughing about his own reaction. He also took us to, not many of us are going to be in a bar fight in Texas.
No.
So he took us to a foreign land.
He sure did. Yeah, his story invites you to participate, if only tangentially, in the experience. Well,
it also goes back to a lot of other stuff he's done, where he does this long thing about one section of it, like when he said, "Wanna go night-night?" There was a whole like 10-minute long skit about that in one of his earlier stand-up comedy things, and he kind of makes reference back to it.
so to be in on that last joke, you had to be in on it. You had to know that last 10, 15 seconds was actually him making fun of another one of his own bits, right? Yeah, and so you were either in on that or you weren't, and that ending was very strange, maybe, for some people. So notice again, as a scholar, I'm thinking about what is this thing doing? How does it work? How does it function? And that's a moment that says we're all in it together. It invites, but doesn't it also then exclude and push away? So think about the times in your life when you have not been in on a joke, how that felt, right? As sort of this marginalized or sidelined individual. Other people who had different reactions to the bit. People who maybe found it offensive or thought maybe some other types of reactions. I don't know, James.
Sure. For me, and I've seen this before in one of your former classes. I do think it is funny, and I did get enjoyment out of it. But as you know, most people know, I don't cuss myself, and I don't particularly like to hear cussing, so that would mitigate a lot of the humor for me. So my experience was a mixture of some enjoyment and pleasure, as well as a level of discomfort, as another student said, especially being in this space. It seemed odd to have that playing around as well. So it was some mixture of emotion.
Yeah, kind of risky. Yeah, but
I mean, I can relate to it just because I am African American. He's African American, so him saying the whole word that everybody doesn't want to hear him say really didn't make me uncomfortable. But I could see how it make everyone else uncomfortable, especially in a coffee shop, super loud, just blasting the N-word.
And I'm white.
Yeah.
And I'm the one presenting it, right? And so it's like, whoa, wait a minute, let's just pause here. That's what you picked, Kara? Yeah. And I mean, even showing that, again, I try not to do very much for shock and awe value. The moments that we embed those in our classrooms and in our learning spaces, I think provide really fantastic learning and discussion opportunities for us to say, what is shocking, what is the awe, and by the way, who is not participating or invited to participate? because of the style of either humor or the types of words and vocabulary being used. I saw another couple hands. What are you thinking? Yeah, Ad.
I kind of agree with what you said earlier. Like, I've been a fan of Kevin Hart for years, and like the whole thing you said, like, you know, laughing in front of a computer screen, like, you know, it's a lot funnier. Like what you said earlier about laughing so hard your stomach hurts. Kevin Hart's got me to that point multiple times. Not that scene, but the scene after, or the scene, the end joke. That one has been a beautiful, and I kind of agree with what you said. Like, you know, out here, I was laughing, but not as would, like, at home or something like that. Like, I kind of agree with what you said.
So let's then bring this home again, right? Think about the style of humor that went on in your house, if any. How did that shape the way you engage with, expose yourself to, participate in, receive different types of humor? Was there someone funny in your home? Was that not part of your upbringing? Were you allowed to laugh when things were awkward or inappropriate? Were you not, and taught that that should really not be something that we do? Right? And so we think about the ways in which our parents, our caretakers exposed us to some of these rituals of communication early on, and how they then later show up. And suddenly it starts to make sense, this idea of thresholds and why not everyone in the room is laughing at my joke. Right? Especially when we then consider different identities, right, that we all share in the room. And we tend to believe that the people closest to us, both in proximity but also relationally, share the same values that we do and are like-minded. When I think what we've learned, especially today in the media, is that couldn't be more not the case whatsoever. Right? I'm often shocked by things I hear, and I think, how could there be people that think this? As I'm sure some people watch that video and say, how could anyone think that was funny? That was the utmost offensive, you know, bit I've seen. Right? So any other ideas or comments on that? Thoughts about humor in your home and how you've seen traces of that? Yeah, Will.
I just wanted to I know that the funny people in my household were also the ones that were very sensitive to cussing and like discriminatory language kind of thing. But at the same time, I somehow learned that that was funny.
You somehow learned that it was funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably cartoons.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that happened.
Yeah.
I definitely liked it.
Yeah. Well, and for some of us, our socializing agents were much stronger as peers than they were family. Right? And so there's another space where we can take a look at a different definition of home and how those people really influenced us as well. Right? Yeah.
In my household, storytelling was like a big way of humor, and it's like there's a lot of storytelling, and it's really funny. And my dad, that was kind of his thing, was telling stories but making it really funny. You know what I mean? And I think that that's what a lot of comedians generally do. And I think that to me is like my favorite kind of humor is when people tell stories that were like super crazy and like out of the box. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, too, how those early communities growing up in our homes really do create some of the rules and boundaries. So just a quick show of hands, how many of you are allowed to swear in front of your parents or caretakers? Or that was just a part of your upbringing? How many of you could never imagine doing such a thing? Yeah. How many people love sarcasm? How many people are appalled by it? No one. Good. All right, that worked out in my favor. No. Nice. How many of y'all really love a good slapstick physical comedy bit? It's a little more of an antiquated humor style than what we see nowadays, right? What are some other forms of humor, some other styles of humor that you think were present and alive in your homes growing up, no matter where that home might be? Yeah, Will.
Puns.
Puns. Oh.
Dad jokes.
Dad jokes. Yeah. I was just telling Joe the other day, my house backs up to a cemetery, and there's like some super awkward competition among all the neighborhood dads right now to make the most lame joke that I can think of when it comes to the cemetery. So someone came up to us the other day and was like, "Oh yeah, you know the Franks, their house bumps up to the cemetery, well, the good news is their neighbors are always dead quiet. And I was like, wow, 10 points. Good call, right? And so there's some circulating, you know, dead type of thing. But here's what they don't know. My grandmother's buried over there. I still think it's hilarious. I don't care. Good, right? Laugh over there, lady, right? But that's a moment where I'll be like, yeah, they are really dead. My grandma's there, and they're like, oh, never mind, sorry, awkward, weird. See you later. All right, cool. Game night next Thursday. Beep, pop, pop. Right? And it's like, get out of there quickly, right? And so it's one of those where like, oh, that story we weren't filled in on the story, the background, the context, right, Joe?
Well, I was just thinking, I'm saddened that slapstick doesn't still have a place. I mean, I show slapstick to my grandsons all the time, and they just crack up. They just love people running into walls and things like that.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know
what is it. Yeah, and, okay, can I have, ready? Pedestal. Here's where I'm going to say something really quick. Slapstick comedy, super physical comedy, right? So it's the old, like, bonk, bonk, right? And you're, like, bonked on the head or something, and then you fall down. Yeah, I Love Lucy, that style. However, okay, so there's 43 distinguishable styles of humor. Puns, wit, physical, right, on and on and on and on. 43. Again, just a little soapboxy here, but follow me. Are women allowed to use slapstick in society the same way that men could? Maybe nowadays, right? And I bring that up because oftentimes I'll ask my students, who's funnier? Who's funniest? Right? And against every urge inside of my body using a gender binary or sex binary, men or women, you know, I'll say, okay, so who's funnier? And it's most often men, and I say, you would probably be right because men have access to so many more forms and styles of comedy that are appropriate culturally for women. And so, for example, I used to have a teacher that would sit quite literally in front of the entire class on a table, just cross-legged, just right up in front of everyone. And it was always kind of weird. It was just like crotch out, just kind of perving out up there. I don't know. It was always so weird for me, like being in the front row. I was like, should I move? I feel like I'm in your pee-pee zone. Like, I don't know how to get away from this. Like, it's really like offensive in a lot of ways. And I thought, as a woman, I would never be able to go in front of my class and just sit cross-legged on a table, nor would I. But I think it's because I've been taught that that's not what you do with your body when you're a woman. And so how many styles of comedy lend themselves also to more masculine, what we might call styles of comedy? So the next one I want to show you is a little bit of incongruity humor. And incongruity humor is when people laugh because whatever is happening completely violates their expectations.
Prop 10, the anti-homeowner initiative. Prop 10.
Ill pairing, this strange pairing of two ideas. So imagine if English wasn't your first language and you saw jumbo shrimp on a menu. That would be kind of interesting, right? Or again, if English wasn't your first language and somebody goes, oh no, they're pretty ugly. Wait a minute, how does that make sense? So incongruity humor puts together two completely unlikely ideas and puts them together in a relationship. So let's see what happens here really quick.
Okay, we won't know.
Yeah, I know.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Between Two Ferns. I'm your host, Zach Galifianakis, and I'm very pleased to have one of my favorite actors, Steve Carell.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. You know, I hear the camera adds 10 pounds. Looks like you've eaten 5 cameras. Here we go. Here we go.
I really love The Office, and I think that you did such a great...
And you love Ricky Gervais. I see where you're going. I've watched your show. I know what you do. Oh, I got you confused. I got you confused with the good one, right? Oh, no, I didn't mean your office. I meant the good one. And scene.
All right, listen, I'm not here to... I'm not going to do the insults like I usually do.
Oh.
I'm not going to say your character on Despicable Me. I hear that they were going to base the nose of the character on your nose, but decided to go for something less cartoonish.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that. Just do a straight interview.
Straight interview, okay. Yeah, I'm down with that. That sounds great.
What is the thing that you're most proud of in your career?
Oh, Evan Almighty, of course.
That's a good movie. That's a good movie.
Fuck you, fatty.
Steve,
I'm just lead me right into that and smack me across
It's
the face.
a great movie.
Okay.
Regardless of all that, they like it lost a lot of money and all that stuff. No one saw it, and the budget was way over, and no one was interested in seeing it. It's a great movie.
Actually brought a few things I'd like to say to you. G-force, more like G, he's fat. The only French word you know is buffet.
That's not true. I know the word croissant.
I heard your last name used to be even longer, but you ate all the other letters of the alphabet. Zach, you look like a homeless guy who's been to a soup kitchen that specializes in ice cream soup. How you doing?
I don't know if we should air this one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
To be honest with you, I do struggle with the weight thing.
Okay,
It's tough in Hollywood. They either want you to stay overweight or they want you to lose a bunch of weight.
You're right. You're right.
Now that I've got a little bit of a career going, the Jews want me to stay in my weight, and it might be unhealthy.
Well,
I was like, I don't know, man. You just seem so lucky. No one ever makes fun of the great Steve Carell. Everybody just loves you. And
that's not true.
Well, it is true.
Oh, there's lots of things to make fun of.
Like what?
I'm Italian. You make fun of that.
Is Carell not your last name?
Not originally.
What is it, Pinocchio?
Okay. Okay.
Like when you go to the beach and someone yells, "Shark, shark," and then they just realize that it's Steve Carell doing the backstroke.
When you go to the beach and you swim out past the buoys, do people think that there's an island there?
I'm not that fat, man.
You are.
No, I'm not that fat.
You're pretty fat.
If you were to do like my percentage of body fat versus your percentage of how much your nose weighs, I guarantee that your nose per capita weighs more than what I would.
All right, fuck you, fatso.
Point is I'm not that fat, okay? I'm not that fat.
So that's a variety, right, of the different types. Oh man, I'm sorry. I think Zach Galifianakis is really weird. I know. I'm showing him. I can't help it. It's because humor exposes us in a lot of ways, and then sometimes you can even feel guilty. Like I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned if I don't laugh. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever felt also trapped by humor in that way, or am I supposed to laugh right now? Is this something that's acceptable? And incongruity humor, again, it's that awkward phase of humor that we're in right now as a society that just doesn't quite know what to do with the awkwardness except to call it out and then play with it and run with it. And when I was thinking about this too, I was thinking how humor in this way really functions as a coping device for some of us to make sense of the things that we don't often know how to make sense of. And so I wanted to turn it a little bit to the body before I go to that last one. Okay, so let's say that you have two unlikely things that absolutely make no sense together. And so anybody in psychology would tell you, well, that's called cognitive dissonance, right? There's something dissonant that's occurring between these two cognitive structures. They make no sense when paired, partnered, or put in relationship together. Well, here's what we don't always think about is what occurs after that moment of cognitive dissonance when we are trying to cope. Biologically, the smile that occurs on your face during that moment of being really awkward or trying to pair those two things together is actually a muscle reaction to a process called sense making. So it's a biological response. Sometimes we can't help but smile even if it's nervous. Right? Even if it's awkward, even if it's because we've been taught somewhere that that's the etiquette. And then at the same time, our brains would physically explode with the cognitive dissonance that occurs every single day from the weird crap that goes down in our society, wouldn't it? Don't you ever just feel like sometimes your brain is going to explode if you hear one more nonsensical thing today that makes no sense to you? So what happens? The mouth says, I have to do something to participate in this, pushes air out the mouth in what we have come to culturally call a laugh, And that is the brain's way of releasing that cognitive tension. That is why when someone gets smacked in the face with a dodgeball, some of you are really horrible people. That is why you are not a horrible person, Paula, because you are simultaneously saying, what are you saying? Somebody gets hit dead in the face with a dodgeball. What goes through your mind? Empathy. I'm so sad for that person. Right? We have, by the way, the nicest person in the room sitting right here. Right? Yes. So I'm so sad for that person. But what else, James?
So glad it wasn't me.
I'm so glad that wasn't me. Right? So that selfish meets the empathy. Those don't go together. I'm not a horrible human being. I'm laughing out loud in any attempt to make sense of what just occurred in front of me. Right? And that's some of the interesting biology. Then what happens is the endorphins and serotonin, all those good body juices start circulating around. That creates the laughter contagion because it feels good to release those tensions, and so we experience that sense of euphoria that comes right along with the rest of it there. So this then brings it back to that idea of, is this something that we're born with, this nature-nurture debate? I've been talking this a lot throughout this presentation about your home, your influences, ways that you were socialized, certain rules, right? Like how many of you would say, like, you got to be able to deal with a certain amount of humor if you're going to be in my family? Like I want you to think about if you were to date someone brand new today, right? I'm like, no, I'm good, but that's fine, right? Right, you swiped and they swiped and your swipeness brings you together in a lovely swipey relationship, and you're going to bring that swipe in to meet your family, right? And so you say, but you prep them because you should, right? Yo, hey, to be in my family, to make this is what my uncle, right, or my so-and-so, because everyone has that person that's like, they're like, oh, you're pregnant, and you're like, no, they're not pregnant at all, right? Or makes that comment or that political joke at the table, or brings it to that place, and you're like, man, right? So we sort of build those routines into some of our dating and our family rituals and things like that. But again, going back to this idea of home, which I thought these were hilarious. Some of the smallest homes, and if you read the article on this, some of these people refused to give up their land to like government space. And so even though they only had like a 4-yard by 12-yard lot, just to piss off whoever it was that was developing the land, they built a house right there on it. Yeah, it's a fabulous article. I'll have to make it available if anybody wants. But some of the world's smallest homes and people's attempts to keep their land when it was otherwise demanded of them. But how does humor work for you in not only a space that represents the home or home-like structures for how you were raised, but what is it also doing for you mentally, emotionally? And I know for many of us, humor is a coping mechanism. It's self-defense. It's healing in a lot of ways. Did you know that if we, in surveys that have been done where they ask people what are the top 3 qualities that you look for in a romantic partner, across the board and despite sexual orientation, good sense of humor makes its way on the list? Why? Why do you want someone with a good sense of humor to potentially spend your life with? Why is that the top 3? By the way, number 1 is always they're hot, because let's be honest. Right? Yeah, so there's that. So they're good looking, and then humor falls in. The what was that?
You wouldn't want someone who's boring.
Because we equate the opposite of not a good sense of humor as somebody who's boring all the time, but what else?
Is it safety?
There's that, the endorphins that we share in these moments of humor. But what about that safety, Joe? What are you thinking?
Well, you want to be able to be yourself and not be criticized, not be judged critically or whatever. If somebody has a good sense of humor, then they're probably pretty safe.
Right?
Relatively safe.
Especially when it comes to the things that we're not allowed to laugh at because of who we are or the ways we look or maybe the jobs we're in, right? And so those rules that society puts in place, but I know that if this is my safe person, we can both laugh together at this thing and we won't get in trouble for it. What else do I?
Humor is a sense of comfort for a lot of people.
How so?
Well, I don't know, because honestly, if it wasn't for my sister's humor, I wouldn't be as comfortable around her as like I am. Because I think she's completely weird and I don't know how I'm related to her.
Yeah.
But I love her because of her humor, and I can sit down with her, feel comfortable around her, making the jokes that she does, or making like the things that she says in a humorous way.
Yeah.
And I just feel way more comfortable with people when they show their humorous sides too.
Yeah.
Showing that like more vulnerable piece of themselves.
Awesome. And then James.
Particularly relevant to romantic relationships.
Yes.
I would imagine there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of self-consciousness, and I think humor is a tremendous way to relieve that, especially when it's...
Wondering how Mommy and Daddy keep it fresh?
Yeah.
We're slingers.
I don't know what's happening here, I'm sorry.
Hey kids, wanna sling with us?
No, I think you're right, and that gets back to these spaces of comfort, right? Comfort has been a theme in humor, so much so that children's hospitals, cancer wards, intense therapy groups have invited humor. Even, I'm sure you've even heard of the comedians that go and perform for the armed services. Because so much is understood about the power of humor to heal and provide that comfort, that nostalgia, that sense of safety and security that some of us just don't have access to in our day-to-day lives, or perhaps has been stripped away from us given various things that go on in our life. So I wanted to show this clip because it always moves me.
Hi. What's your name? Cameron. Hi, Cameron. I'm Patch.
I'm cold. Just a minute cold. Is my nose red? Oh, it is. It's red. What's that? You don't know? I don't either. Let's find out. Taxi! Try on you. It's working very good.
Big kisses.
Mind if I sit down? Hello, my friend. Hello. Oh, look out.
What is going on here?
Like that's a pretty poor representation of healthcare, but nonetheless. Right. Still, let's see. There we go. Yeah, I think it's just absolutely, absolutely adorable. But it, it shows, again, some of the other, I think, just really important functions of humor as far as healing goes, both for the body but also the mind. And the relationships that emerge in those moments of healing, camaraderie, inclusivity, but also not neglecting what can happen when it outgroups and pushes people or discriminates or is prejudiced or all the isms come in. So with that in mind, and because I want to leave some room for discussion or questions or answers, as I mentioned, there's about 43 different styles of humor. And when I've consulted with organizations, for example, about how to invite humor into the workplace, how to invite it as part of your hiring process, how to, again, look at it as an attitude, right? More of an orientation than this ability to be funny. People often ask, well, what are some examples? What are some examples? And in addition to those that I've shown, I've put a couple up here. So, and these are, again, quite cultural, so to speak. So they're usually context and culture specific, which I believe is my slide right before that, right? So again, to be in on a joke, you have to know what's going on, right? Politically, socially, culturally, economically, in your own family, in your home, you have to know what's going on. And sometimes we need a little prompting for that, a little help, a little nudge, right? But the reason why it gets so lost in translation is because, one, not only does it literally not translate well from language to language, right? But also because it is so context and language bound. So I want to say that the example that I gave with the connotations is, how many of you are fans of the web series Portlandia? Okay. If you are a fan of Portlandia, perhaps you can recall the chicken episode where they order some chicken. Okay, yeah, we have just enough time to show it. I got to show it. This is either totally funny or absolutely not. Either you definitely get it or you're completely offended. And it's one of those, again, examples of
You don't need any special
it being context bound.
But you do.
And then we'll stop right there.
Look at me, no crying, no crying.
Hey guys, the game's about to start.
Pull Hammy.
Thank you for buying me that bag.
Come on, it's more for me than you.
God, you have beautiful eyes.
Everyone tells me that.
I'm the only one that told you that.
No, I don't mean like in a flirty way, but people ask me when I was a kid, like, you got great eyes. And it's like, I'm just a guy.
Oh my God.
I am your guy.
Hey guys. Hello.
Hi, hello.
My name is Dana. I'll be taking care of you today. If you have any questions about the menu, please let me know.
I guess I do have a question about the chicken. If you could just tell us a little bit more about it.
The chicken is a heritage breed, woodland-raised chicken that's been fed a diet of sheep's milk, soy, and hazelnuts.
Okay, this is local?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to ask you just one more time. It is local?
It is.
Is that USDA organic or Oregon organic or Portland organic?
It's just all across the board, organic.
The hazelnuts, these are local?
How big is the area where the chickens are able to roam free?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I had exactly the same question.
4 acres. Give me just a second. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
She's nice.
We're doing the right thing.
I'm too apologetic.
You are.
I drove way too slow here today, didn't I?
Yeah.
I'm so weird with that gas pedal. The thing just moves the whole vehicle forward now.
All right, so here is the chicken you'll be enjoying tonight.
You have this information. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. His name was Colin. Here are his papers, okay?
That's great. He looks like a happy little guy who runs around. A lot of friends, other chickens as friends. Putting his little wing around another one and kind of like palling around.
I don't know that I can speak to that level of intimate knowledge about him. They do a lot to make sure that their chickens are very happy.
When you say they, I mean, who are these people raising Colin?
It's a farm that's located about 30 miles south of Portland.
And you have a good relationship with this farm?
We do.
But is that some guy on a yacht who lives in Miami?
Oh,
who's
goodness,
just
no.
saying that he's organic?
It tears at the core of my being the idea of someone just cashing in on a trend like organic.
No.
And in the next scene, they go and visit Colin's farm just to make sure before they order the food. And so another cool little feature about a humor and comedy that we didn't get to is that it's often a commentary, right? There's typically some very small kernel of truth that it either represents or from which it originated. Even stereotypical humor or the isms humor typically originate with somebody's version of a truth or experience. But again, to be in on the joke, you either need to be from Portland or understand foodie culture or find it ridiculous the ways that we go about qualifying our food nowadays and the like. Many of you were not laughing, and it makes perfect sense because it is so context and culture bound. So again, I have the green ones are usually some safer ones, exaggeration, some improv, puns, and one-liners. Yellow is where we're starting to get in the danger zone, and that's where there's a certain level of teasing I think that we would say is totally safe, but doesn't it certainly depend with who? And isn't it also strange that different people give different sort of signals as to whether or not they're okay to tease? Right? This is really funny. I just met Pamela over the weekend, and like, I'm action, right? Like, there's something about Pamela that says like, I'm game, right? Or I'm good, right? Yeah, it is. And there's others of you that I've worked with for a year, 2 years, and I'm like, no, that's not cool, right? And maybe you have that person in your friend group or even in your family, right? As well. And then again, like, just some hot topic stuff, the insults, all the isms, stuff that's just too soon, right? I had a student shortly after the Vegas shooting make a joke about the Vegas shooting, and I was like, you're going to need to give that a minute, right? Like that, and longer than that, most likely, if there is any humor in that, if at all. But then I had to stop and think, maybe this is that person's way of coping. Maybe this is, in fact, their self-defense mechanism. Come to find out later, that student, her cousin, was in the actual shooting, and this was her sense-making process. So quick also not to necessarily assume the intentions of the humorist as well. So anyway, with that, I know we have just a couple minutes. I hope today that you learned a little bit more about humor, its functions, its theories, its biology, but more importantly, the way that it truly can behave as a space of shelter and safety and refuge to grapple with and cognitive dissonantly work our way through some of the things that are more complex. Hopefully some of the big shapers were that came out of your early origins of home and ways that you mimic and show those today, and maybe even gain a little appreciation for other people's homes when that humor is nothing and looks nothing like your home whatsoever. So cool. Any questions? Yeah.
Do you know if any of the studies looking at Robin Williams, who was an amazingly humorous person, and also had deep depression?
Yeah.
And it seems like that's not uncommon among humorists. Are there any studies that kind of look at that?
Yeah, not to do one of these, but one of them was mine. In my master's thesis, I followed a comedy troupe of 5 individuals, watched over 160 hours of their comedy. And what goes on stage is so different than what goes on off stage. For the first time in my life, I saw a line of cocaine sniffed in front of my face. That was just not something that my upbringing had been exposed to before that. What I don't want to do is stigmatize comedians as cocaine users in any particular way, but it was so clear that their method of coping and was not only performance related on the stage, but also tied to some unhealthy practices as well. So many of them came forward and talked about drug abuse, depression. They were often the bullies growing up, or bullied, growing up, or teased, for example, for being fat growing up, and quickly developed this sense of humor as a defense mechanism. If we think about it from an evolutionary perspective, right? So very heterosexual, again, in its orientation, but big guy can beat me up. Who is the potential mate going to select? Bigger, stronger genes. But if I can make that person look like an absolute fool, perhaps I have a chance, right? So my ability to make fun of that person. So a lot of these people came from spaces in their lives or really hard experiences where this was their means of coping. That doesn't necessarily mean that that thing went away. So yeah, depression, anxiety, even performance anxiety, where you kind of get on stage and black out and everything just becomes sort of a moment of acting or you know, yeah, out-of-body experience, absolutely. Yeah, but there have been studies done. Class clowns, same way. How do I get attention? If it's not for my good looks or my athleticism or my scholarship abilities, being witty. Class clowns are most often male. About 90% of class clowns are male. Females have been taught in early elementary school things that they should not do as far as acting out more than men. So that's an interesting little tidbit too. 90% male class clowns. So. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah. And I know we're done. So. You can email me. Sorry. No, and this isn't even all 43. This is just some of them. I have, and if you'd like, I would love to exchange emails. I have some fantastic texts that really do a good job of laying them out and distinguishing between the different styles. This chart is one that I've made, but it's been backed up with some other support saying, yeah, that's probably safe or not so much and stuff like that. But I have a lot of those. This is kind of a compilation of years of research. But I'm happy to share it. Yeah.
I believe we're close to time. Your email, Tara, your email is just tfranks?
Tfranks 3. There were 2 other Tfrankses before me. I'm about ready to find them.
tfranks3 at sierracollege.edu. And thank you so very, very much. Keep laughing, okay? It's very, very healthy. You have to be careful about what we're laughing at and for and at and who and whatever too. But extremely important. Thank you so very much. I forgot to tell you, she is also a champion karaoke. Can you imagine that? Yes. Right. Thank you so much.